A very good evening everyone. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. Today is 10th June 2025 and today we have some very important topics for the discussion. So one by one, we'll try to discuss all these important topics in a very detailed and in-depth manner so that this discussion will be helpful for your prelims and mains examination. So without any further delay, let's get into the discussion. Then the first topic with which we are going to start the session is about women in agriculture sector and how to empower women in agriculture sector, because we all knew at the grassroots level, if we empower women, that will lead to social, political, economic empowerment of the woman. In India, if you talk about the gender equality, it is at the decimal. So because of this particular reason, it is very important that we need to encourage women's participation in different factors, so different aspects. So in order to encourage women in different areas, it is very important that we need to encourage women in agriculture sector, and we should also make women more and more profitable in the agriculture sector. So the context is that recently United Nations General Assembly declared 2026 as International Year of Women Farmer. So remember, this has been asked in UPSC Prelims Examination 2025. So therefore, this is also an important aspect that you should focus on. So this is an important theme that you should actually focus on. So you have to focus on all the years right from 2021 to 2030, because UPSC has asked from 2025 to 2030 all the years. So coming back to the topic, the United Nations General Assembly has declared 2026 as the International Year of Women Farmer with support from around 100 countries. However, this global recognition actually comes in the middle of growing attention in the challenges that the women have been facing in the agriculture sector. So it is true that women have been facing number of challenges in the agriculture sector, even though they are engaging in agriculture sector more than men, right? What are the common problems that the women have been facing? For example, the land rights, market access, climate vulnerability, all these problems that the women have been facing regularly. However, recently insights from India's ENACT project, and this project has been carried out in the state of Assam, and in fact a 6-month multi-stakeholder symposium, and that has revealed certain policy and grassroots solutions to the problems that the women have been facing. Now, what are the common problems that the women have been facing? For example, imagine that the women farmer have been engaging in the agriculture sector. They are very often deprived of the land rights, so they are lacking land rights. Secondly, women are not having market access to their produce, and they are not getting the remunerative prices. And in recent times, climate vulnerability is also another major factor that has been impacting the women farmers on a large scale. So in this context, empowering women farmers and building a climate resilient and equitable agriculture is very important to empower the women's farmers. So on the screen you can see the contribution of women in the agriculture sector. So around 78% of India's employed women work in agriculture sector. So you can imagine how women are coming forward to be part of the agriculture sector. So therefore, if we can actually make women more and more profitable in the agriculture sector, so that will empower the women in multiple other areas as well. And apart from that, the 70% of the farm work is led by women in rural areas, and 50% of the rural women are the agricultural laborers, and 60% of the world food volume is grown by the women. So there is a disproportionate engagement of women in the agriculture sector. So this has rightly recognized the important contribution of women in agriculture sector, thereby making agriculture sector more and more profitable, and that is going to benefit the women farmers on a large scale. And in fact, it is being said that women would contribute to around 60 to 80% of the food production around the developing nations, and in fact it also makes up 39% of the South Asia's agricultural workforce. And what are the developing countries? For example, countries in Latin America, Africa and Southeast Asia, Asia. So all these countries are developing countries, and in these developing countries 60 to 80% of the food production is dominated or produced by the the women farmers alone, and these women farmers also make up 39% of South Asia's agricultural workforce as well. However, despite their massive contribution, they still remain under recognized, and even they are lacking the support from the government, right? So they are lacking the policy support, and they are in a way, I would say that they are lacking support from the government, and that support is necessary, and we need to recognize the contribution of women in these multiple areas. And in India, if we talk about specifically about women, 80%, around 80% of economically active women, so they are working in agriculture sector, or they are engaging in agriculture sector. However, even though 80% of the economically active women are engaged in the agriculture sector, just 14% of those women have been recognized as the landowners. Here they are lacking the land rights. They lacked the land rights which are necessary for women to get subsidies, get incentives from the government, to get institutional credit as well. So therefore, we need to recognize the land rights. We need to recognize women as farmers, and that is very, very important as well, because it gives women the access to institutional credit, and institutional credit is very important, because if we provide institutional credit, the women farmers would not depend on the local money lenders, because we all knew that the local money lenders very often charge a very high interest rates, and that would lead to the debt burden on the women farmers. So they would be more and more vulnerable. So therefore, in order to ensure that the women farmers have access to the institutional credit, what we need to do, we need to provide land rights, and we should also give them access to Kisan credit cards as well. And in fact, women face barriers. They face certain barriers accessing credit, mobile based advisory services, and the technological tools as well, because there are certain issues that the women farmers have been facing. One is a lack of digital literacy, and lack of recognition of women farmers, and that makes them deprived of the credit. And digital illiteracy, so digital illiteracy, they are not able to use mobile based advisory services, and they are also not able to use the technological tools as well, and ultimately hampering their ability to access the markets and the productivity and even the long term investment in the agriculture sector. So therefore, these points must be kept in mind. However, what are the government interventions so far, and other climate resilience initiatives that have been already launched, which specifically focuses on women? For example, the government has already launched programs like Mahila Kisan Sasaktikaran Pariyojana, and this is a submission under agricultural mechanization program. And the government even launched National Food Security Mission, right? So the National Food Security Mission would provide 50% to 80% of the subsidies and reserve 30% of the funds for the women farmers, right? So whenever you are being asked a question about the women farmers, because there is obvious chance that such questions are asked in your general studies paper 3, so therefore you must mention these schemes that are launched by the government. Earlier we have discussed that this ENACT project that has been conducted in the state of Assam is implemented by the World Food Program and Government of Assam, and this ENACT program will equip women with the climate resilient technologies, because earlier we have discussed that the climate vulnerability is also one factor which has been impacting women in the agriculture sector. So therefore, we need to adequately equip and empower women with the climate resilient technologies, and this ENACT project rightly equip women with the climate resilient technologies. Along with that, weekly advisories, and even it provides links to expert guidance through the climate adaptation information centers in around 17 villages all across the state of Assam. So therefore, the very similar and same things need to be implemented in rest of India as well in order to empower women in agriculture sector. And the project will promote the flood resistant rice cultivation, and smart seed systems will be promoted, and diversified farm based livelihoods will be encouraged. So all these interventions as part of the enact project is aimed at ensuring remunerative prices for the women farmers, making them financially self-sufficient, self-reliant and independent, and apart from that providing livelihood security for the women farmers. So that will ultimately make a difference, right? So all these initiatives that would assist women will be taken up with the help of departments, agricultural universities and even the rural missions that would be carried out, right? So all these things would be integrated to provide women all necessary services which would empower them to emerge as the most successful farmers. And now what should be the way forward, right? So when we talk about the way forward, we need to think in a multi-pronged way, taking into account the policy, the data and the institutional support as well. Now in this context, a gender specific policy framework is required, because as we have just discussed that 80% of the economically active women are engaged in the agriculture sector. Now don't you find there is a need that we need to have a gender specific policy frameworks that are required, right? So the gender disaggregated data, so that data must inform the policy tools ranging from farming equipment design to credit systems suited for the women needs. Understand, if we have data about the women's farmers, and that will result in evidence-based data-driven policy making, and that is very important for the betterment of the livelihoods of the women farmers, right? So therefore we need to have a gender specific policy framework, and that needs to be put in place. And similarly, we need to boost women's managed agri value chains all across the country, and we should also enable finance markets and networks, rightly leveraging the already existing self-help groups, because they can drive the substantial and sustainable development of the women farmers, because women farmers require finance and women farmers also require markets for the produce, and even establishing networks, particularly managed agri value chains. So all these factors would ensure remunerative prices for the women farmers and making them financially independent and self-sufficient as well. So in the beginning we have discussed that the International Year of Women Farmer was declared in the year 2026. So therefore it actually provides a unique platform that will institutionalize gender equity, and it will also build resilient inclusive food systems as well, and ultimately it will help us achieve the goal of empowering women farmers, whether it is social, political, economic empowerment of women, and also achieve the goal of gender equality, along with that the gender equity as well, right? So gender equality along with the gender equity as well. And apart from that, in order to empower women in India, a number of other programs have also been launched, not just limited to the agriculture sector. For example, in order to promote the sex ratio of women and in order to promote the education among the girl child, Beti Bachao Beti Padhao program has been launched, and Mahila Shashakti Kendras have been launched, National Cringe System, Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana. So such number of programs have been launched for the betterment and empowerment of women in India. So I hope you have understood this particular topic. So let's move on to the next important topic. So the next important topic is India's first e-waste recycling park to be built in India. Right, so this is the first time that India's e-waste recycling park will be established in India. So what is the context? The context is that, a Delhi government is setting up India's first e-waste eco park in a place called Holambi Kallan, right? So this e-waste management park will be established in Delhi, and this park is going to manage the e-waste in a scientific manner, and it even recycles the electronic waste as well. So in order to manage the e-waste, and this park is going to be established. Now what is a e-waste? And we all knew about e-waste. For example, the old discarded mobile phones, laptops, so all these different materials are considered as the e-waste. So therefore, this particular e-waste park would recycle the e-waste in a scientific manner and giving boost to the circular economy, right? So it will give boost to the circular economy. Now in this context, so spanning 11.4 acres, the park aims to process around 25% of Delhi's e-waste, and it will also promote circular economy. For example, imagine that 100 tons of e-waste is generated in Delhi, and this park alone would recycle around 25% of the e-waste that is generated in Delhi. And not just in Delhi, there are several metropolitan cities in India, and those metropolitan cities generate a huge quantities of e-waste, and there is a need to establish such e-waste recycling plants which could actually recycle the e-waste in a scientific manner, giving a sustained push to the scientific recycling and as well as the circular economy. As so, when we talk about some details of Delhi e-waste eco park, so the annual capacity of this park would be around 51,000 metric tons of e-waste it would be processing, and the different categories would be covered. So it actually covers around 106 notified under the e-waste management rules that were formulated in the year 2022. So this project model would be considered as the design, build, finance, operate and transfer model, and this is under the public-private partnership, right? So this will be established under the public-private partnership model. So what will be the policy and governance framework of this particular e-waste management park in Delhi? So it will be guided by the e-waste management rules of 2022, right? So e-waste management rules of 2022 would guide the policy and governance of this e-waste management park, and it will be managed by Delhi State Industrial and Infrastructure Development Corporation, and the objective is circular economy, right? So I hope you have understood what exactly is a circular economy. Now in circular economy, what happens is that we reduce the need for extracting the raw materials. So what we actually do is that whatever raw materials, whatever material that we have already collected from processing or recycling the e-waste, the very same material would be again used in the manufacturing of these items, instead of having procuring the raw material. So thereby there is no need for extracting any raw materials, right? So there's no need for extracting raw materials. So the objective is promotion of circular economy and formalization of the informal sector resource recovery as well, right? So in this context, the environmental and socio-economic impact of this e-waste management rules would be that now currently India is considered as the third largest e-waste producer. So it would be around 1.6 million metric tons annually. So Delhi's share would be around 9.5% of the total e-waste that would be generated, right? So the recycled e-waste global average would be 17.4%. And what would be the exact role of this park? So the model facility would inspire replication, empower formal recyclers, generate green jobs and improve the environmental health as well, right? So these are the set objectives under this particular e-waste recycling park, and that is going to be established in Delhi, because when we talk about the circular economy, so it will give it will promote the sustainable development, right? So it will be actually promoting the sustainable development. So in sustainable development, the definition is that the development that meets the needs of the present generation, and the future generations don't compromise on the use of resources, right? So that is the definition of the sustainable development that has been given by the Brundtland Commission. And the circular economy, what we are doing is we are conserving the existing raw material. So we are not extracting the raw materials. Rather, whatever material that we have collected from processing the e-waste would be again used to manufacture these electronic items, and that is what is called as the circular economy, right? So India, you can imagine that this is the third largest e-waste producer after China, US. And Delhi's share alone would be around 9.5% of the total e-waste generation. So that you can imagine that total 10%, around 10% of the e-waste is generated by Delhi alone, right? So in fact, the global average of recycled e-waste would be around 17.4%, and these are the advantages of the recycling of the circular recycling of the electronic waste, right? So India's e-waste mess, right? So here the definition of e-waste has been given. So e-waste is generally any electronic or electrical product which is discarded. Now what is the issue here? So India's e-waste generation is rising at the rate of 4 to 5%. And what is the problem? So the problem is that there's a huge gap between the waste generated and the waste which is sustainably processed and recycled. And what can be done? So what can be done? So handle e-waste in a scientific manner, right? So for that, what have to be done? So proper disposal of all components that cannot be recycled, increase number of recycling and dismantling units from so all these things would be done, right? So types of e-waste, for examples, printers, scanners, cell phones, mobile phones, monitors, laptops. So all these discarded items would be considered as e-waste. Now e-waste also generate a huge amounts of pollution, so soil pollution, water pollution, and air pollution as well, right? So sustainable waste e-waste recycling is a very important for a circular economy, and also reducing the levels of pollution in the environment, right? So here the next very important topic, so this could be important for prelims and mains examination perspective as well. So recently the water harvesting model has been developed in the state of Rajasthan. So we just have a look at this water harvesting model in the state of Rajasthan along with other similar traditional water harvesting models, so that promotes the conservation of the water. So the context is that sustainable and climate resilient rural water conservation project using the farm ponds has been implemented in Kokas village in Jaipur, Rajasthan, right? So a sustainable, climate resilient and rural water conservation project. Now in this context, it has been spearheaded by the IIT Kharagpur, so alumnus Vipra Goyal, and this initiative essentially aimed at harvesting around 10 crore liters of monsoon runoff using 50 scientifically designed plastic lined ponds, and ultimately enhancing irrigation, groundwater recharge and farmer livelihoods as well. Now remember that India is a country which has been extracting a huge quantities of groundwater, and in fact people also don't have a huge amount of responsibility when it comes to the conservation and storage of the rainwater. So therefore it is very important that we must promote the conservation of rainwater. So rainwater harvesting is also a very important aspect, so that we can actually escape the water stress, right? Because India is going to face water stress. Majority parts of India is going to face water stress because of the extraction of huge amounts of fresh water, and also using fresh water without actually having the responsibility to use this in a wise way, in a wise manner, right? So water conservation model. So water conservation model that has been followed in Kokas village of Jaipur. So this is a rural water harvesting model, and it has been scientifically designed. A plastic lined farm, a plastic lined farm ponds, right? A plastic lined farm ponds, and it is a scientifically designed water harvesting model. Now this pond is designed to capture around 10 crore liters of seasonal monsoon runoff, and a groundwater over extraction in Jaipur is around 22 times the recharge rate annually, right? So you are extracting the groundwater, but the groundwater recharge is very less, but you are extracting more groundwater, and that would create a potential water shortage problem, and the entire city or the region will face the water stress or water crisis. So therefore it is very, very important that we need to design systems that will help harvest the rainwater, that could store the rainwater. Now it will be ensuring climate resilience, because the farm ponds actually offer viable and scalable climate adaptive solutions in arid regions with no river or canal system. So imagine that if there are no river or canal systems, so in that particular case, so these farm ponds actually offer a viable and scalable climate adaptive solution. So they can also help in groundwater recharge, mitigating droughts, and climate proofing in the agriculture sector as well, right? So these are the advantages of developing such farm ponds in areas where there is no water, and these are arid areas, receive less rainfall, and there is no canal network for a sustained irrigation as well, right? So it can even support year round irrigation, both rabi as well as kharif crops. And it even promotes crop diversification into a high value horticulture and even the fodder crops as well. So these are the advantages of having such systems which are scientifically designed to store, harvest the water in a much more sustainable manner. So you can see on this image there are number of traditional water conservation, water harvesting techniques. For example, in the state of Rajasthan, there are some traditional water harvesting structures called Thanka, Khadins. In Gujarat, Virdas, Vav, and in Madhya Pradesh they are being called as Pat, and in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana they are being called as Cheru, and Tamil Nadu they are being called as Urani and Eri. So these are different traditional water harvesting systems that are already in place, right? So therefore there's a need to promote these traditional water harvesting structures, right? So you can also go through this, how the rainwater harvesting is going to benefit us in number of ways, whether it is irrigation, agriculture, drinking water, groundwater recharge, biodiversity, environment, livestock. In all the number of ways this is going to benefit us, right? So the next important topic is census 2027. There is an important article that has been given in the Hindu newspaper, and this is important for your general studies paper 2, particularly for mains examination. The context is that in 2027 census, which are being delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the census have to be conducted in 2021 once in a 10 years, but due to COVID-19 pandemic the census were not conducted on time. But the census 2027 will be India's first digital census. So you should have to remember, because this is going to be important for your prelims examination. And it is also crucial basis for parliamentary delimitation, caste enumeration, and even the resource allocation as well, right? So for these reasons, the 2027 census data would be very, very important. And in fact, it also coincides with the 16th Finance Commission's review, and thereby potentially reshaping India's political and fiscal landscape. So the 16th Finance Commission has been established under the chairmanship of Aravind Pangaria, and this census 2027 will be coinciding with the 16th Finance Commission's review. Next, the demographic counting as a political instrument, right? So the census 2027 would be used for the delimitation of the parliamentary constituencies, and in fact there are concerns that the southern states have been expressing that since they have performed better in terms of demography controlling the population growth, so if a delimitation exercise is carried out based on the recent population census, then the southern states would be disincentivized. They would be getting a lesser number of seats after the delimitation, and this is their concern. However, it is being said that the next interstate parliamentary representation, so that will be based on the population figures and first census after 2026 as mandated by Article 81 of the Constitution. And for the first time, all census data will be digitally collected, as I have already mentioned, so enabling faster tabulation and possibly advancing the 2029 general elections under a newly delimited parliamentary map as well, right? So if population becomes the sole criteria or a only single criteria for seat reallocation, so states with a higher population growth rates, for example, there are certain states which are considered as Bimaru states, for example UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, so all these states, all the states would be getting higher number of seats than what they currently have. For example, Uttar Pradesh alone is having around 143 seats, right? So Bihar would be getting 79 seats. So therefore all these states would be getting much more higher number of seats, and in fact these are the poor states, but the southern states are economically advanced states, but because of their lower population there is a chance that these states would be getting lesser number of parliamentary seats if delimitation is being carried out based on the census, right? Now in this context, what will be the socio-political consequences of the caste census? For example, the full scale caste enumeration is after 1931, right? So in 1931 caste census was conducted, but even after independence also a detailed caste census was not conducted, but this is going to be for the first time that a full scale caste census would be conducted after independence, right? So the existing practice is enumerating only scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, but as of now 2027 caste census, so all castes would be taken into consideration, and there will be a data about all different castes, and thereby it is expected that it would further intensify claims for the quota revisions as well, because as of now, so the 50% ceiling has been established by the Supreme Court in Indira Sonai judgment. However, the caste census is expected to trigger a demand for revisiting the 50% ceiling on reservations, especially amid rising political mobilization on the caste lines. And similarly, so a 33% of the reservation has also been provided to women through 106th Constitutional Amendment Act. So 106th Constitutional Amendment Act has provided 33% reservation for women in Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, and this is also called as Nari Shakti Vandana Abhinayam. So the upcoming delimitation will incorporate this 33% reservation for women in Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, and it will also expected to facilitate the simultaneous elections both at the center and state levels as well, right? So these could be the expected outcomes of census 2027. So I hope you have understood this, and that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. And if you like our class, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button, and if you have any doubts regarding our class, so please type your all doubts in comment section, and thank you so much.